I would say that my biggest mistake was
Hey guys, it's me, Caitlin. I am a part-time reseller with my parents and a full-time student. And today I'm going to be interviewing one of my favorite YouTubers, Becky Park. You may know her as Becky Park on Poshmark on YouTube or Instagram. So let's let her introduce herself.
Thank you so much for having me on, Caitlin. My face is red, guys, because I just spent the last 2 minutes trying to get my DMs or not DMs, but messages to stop binging and dinging. But I am a part-time reseller. I'm a full-time high school. Okay. I'm a high school choir teacher and I'm a mom. I've got two kids and my daughter, actually, both my kids have something in common with you, which is you do gymnastics, right?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So my kids do gymnastics too. And I don't know, just trying to do all the things. I feel like I have a lot of interest, but reselling is one of those things I have kind of stuck with for some time. And I have a YouTube channel about it. But yeah, that's who I am in a nutshell. I don't know what else you want me to share about myself, but
Okay, well, we're going to start off with the first question. So, how did you get the idea to start reselling and start a YouTube channel off of it?
well, I started reselling because many years ago now, what is it, like 5 years ago? I had a bunch of clothes between my husband and I that we didn't wear anymore. And a lot of it was like new with tags, but it was more mature brands because we were both teachers. And it was a lot of like Banana Republic, J. Crew, that sort of thing. And I took the clothes to Plato's Closet. And I think at that time they were like, we can't take any of this. Like it's all very mature brands. It's just not stuff that we sell. And I was like, okay. And obviously I could just like donate it, but I just wanted to see if there was a way that I could recoup some of the money that we had invested in that clothes in the first place. So I did some research and my brother had actually talked about Poshmark in passing before. He'd always be like, look at this Gucci belt I could get for, half off. And I'm like, okay. But because I had heard him talk about it, and when I did some research online, Poshmark came up, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try listing a couple things and see what happens. So I listed probably like 10 things. And within 2 weeks, one of my husband's pairs of shoes sold. And I was instantly hooked. I was like, this is pretty cool. So I started listing more things. I was selling more things. And I started like trying to do more research to figure out how can I sell even more? Because it was kind of cool, like selling one or two things a week. But I was like, surely there's a way that I could sell more. Maybe there are like different things that I'm not doing that I should be doing. So I did some research. And that's when I discovered people talking about Poshmark on YouTube. And that's when I also realized through watching these videos that there were people who were making a full-time living selling used clothes on Poshmark. And I was like, what in the world? So I really went down the rabbit hole of learning how to be a better reseller, essentially through YouTube. And while I was soaking up as much information as I could, and I loved it, I loved watching all these YouTube videos from different sellers. I did realize, man, there's not really anyone talking about this from the perspective of a part-time reseller because I did have a full-time job. This was something that I was doing on the side. And that's essentially why I was like, maybe I'll have my own YouTube channel and it can be about reselling, but as a part-time reseller. So that's why I decided to start my channel because I wanted to be a voice for a big community, I think, of resellers who there just weren't a lot of us on YouTube. So that's how I got the idea to start, creating content on YouTube as well.
That's really interesting. All right. So our next question is what is one of your favorite items you have found?
Oh, whenever people ask me these questions, I always like freeze, like my brain stops working. I can't remember all the things, all the cool things that I've found. Um, I don't know. Like for me, I think I really like selling things that help complete almost like a memory for people or just like take them back. So, for example, I found this one random t-shirt I remember and it said like diamond on the front. I don't know. And it wasn't like a very awesome find. Like when I looked up comps later, I was like, okay, this is worth like $15. But what was exciting about selling it was the person who bought it for me reached out and they're like, thank you so much for, having the shirt up for sale. I think she had like been dating a guy and she like left the shirt at his house and didn't want to get it back from him because, they had broken up. And so she's like, but I always wanted to get the shirt back. And this was the shirt, you had it for sale. So I don't know why, like that kind of stuff just makes me really happy that I can just kind of like complete that little memory for that person or just kind of like help them find closure in moments or something. So I've had like a few incidents like that where people reach out and they're like, I've been looking for this. You are the only person that had it for sale. Thank you so much. So it's not like $1,000 sale, but it makes me feel good about what I'm doing.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right. So are you still like buying personal clothes from like retail stores? Or are you buying like all your clothes from like thrift stores?
So I would say that's a good question. I don't do a lot of retail arbitrage just because I don't have a lot of great stores in my area to do that with. Obviously, if I wanted to take the time to do some research online, I could do some like online arbitrage, but I would say probably like 50% of what I source comes from thrift stores and consignment stores. And again, because of where I live, my thrift stores are not amazing, but I feel like actually my local consignment stores are really great because a lot of times I can get stuff at thrift store prices, but the quality is better and there's better brands and stuff like that. But I also get a lot of stuff from friends and family who just know that I resell and they'll just bring a ton of stuff to my house. I have also been just kind of experimenting with like wholesale and like just buying inventory off of other resellers. And, you've been experimenting with Whatnot too. So I've been spending way too much money on Whatnot. It's not the best place to source because you're definitely paying a premium. But yeah, I've been doing about 50% kind of the traditional sourcing route for resellers and then 50% just kind of filling it in through other means.
All right. What is one thing that if you could go back in time and tell yourself one of your biggest mistakes as a beginner reseller?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say that my biggest mistake was comparing myself too much to other resellers. So I think it is great the amount of free information that's out there on YouTube, on Instagram. There are resellers who have blogs and stuff, and there's a lot of great free information. But what I didn't realize at the beginning was that their advice was simply that advice. When they said things like, you have to do things this way, or you cannot pick up this brand, or X, Y, and Z, I wish I had known back then. That's just their advice, and I could take it or leave it. And also, I think that at the beginning, and sometimes I still struggle with this, but especially at the beginning, I really beat myself up a lot because I was like, well, Harry Tornado is making X amount of dollars, and I'm only doing this much. So I must be doing something wrong, or I'm a failure. And I think that one thing I had to learn, and something I have to continually remind myself of even now, is it's such a waste of time and energy to compare myself to someone else, especially because they're in a different point of their reselling journey. And because there are so many things that don't line up 100%. Someone might be full-time, I'm only part-time. Someone might live in LA, I live like in the middle of cornfields. And so it's a waste of time and energy to compare ourselves to other people because everyone's circumstances are different. And once I figured that out, I was much happier about how I was doing and where I was in my journey. And I was able to, celebrate every success that came my way versus being upset that I wasn't able to do as well as other people. Sorry, I just saw that a text came in and I'm like, don't make the noise, but that one didn't make a noise. So I don't know what happened there, but yeah. So I think that would be it. It's that it's to, yes, learn from other resellers, but don't compare myself to them.
Yeah. All right. Have your kids ever helped with your reselling business?
Yeah. So my youngest, he's 5. He likes to help. And by help, he likes to, take the labels, like the shipping labels off the thing and put them. But really his help means that my shipping process is going to take like 2 times as long. But my daughter, she actually will help with like photographing and stuff sometimes. I just have her photograph kid stuff, things that she outgrew. It's like her own personal stuff. and she'll help me like put inventory bags away. When I have processed a bunch of inventory, I've photographed it and it just needs to get put away in the bins. Like she'll help with that kind of stuff. So I do put them to work here and there, but they haven't helped in terms of like sourcing or any real meaningful, like, oh, you're actually helping me save time with shipping. Like that hasn't happened yet. But they're like somewhat interested, but also I think they're annoyed sometimes of my reselling because it just means there's clothes all over the place and they just want their house back. But what are you going to do?
Yeah, but sourcing's the best part. Why did they never go?
It is, but I think it's because they don't know what kind of stuff is good for resale. You know what I mean? So do you source a lot of your own stuff yourself?
I do. I
That's
like sourcing. That's my favorite part.
that's
Most
amazing.
things.
And are you doing clothes? Are you doing like what kind of stuff are you sourcing?
I like looking for like plushes, toys, more than
Yeah.
clothes because I know
Yeah.
more about stuff.
Yeah. So I think that if I let them do that, they would probably love it. But I don't know very much about that kind of stuff. So I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know if that stuffed animal is worth it. So one day we'll meet in the middle. I'll learn a little bit. They'll learn a little bit. But yeah, you're right. Like they probably would have a lot more fun if I let them do that. And it would be a really great experiment to be like, here's $10. Go pick out whatever you want and let's try reselling it and see how much money you can make off of it. But one day I will loosen the reins a little bit and have them do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So, what do you think is one of the biggest mistakes that beginners make?
I think beginners get really excited about the sourcing thing because, like you said, that's the most fun part. And they spend a lot of money and they bring in a lot of inventory before they've really learned what kind of stuff is going to sell and before they have systems in place. And what happens is they get overwhelmed really quickly. So they have too much stuff, they've spent too much money, and they are not able to make that money back in a timely manner. So they get really overwhelmed. A lot of people quit right away because of that. And because they're just buying horrible things because they think they're getting it for a great deal. So I would say that they just get in over their heads way too quickly and make a lot of bad buys versus having systems in place for, okay, I'm only going to go out and source again if I'm able to sell X number of items, or just kind of practicing some self-control at the beginning.
Yeah, at the beginning, we spent I think $1,000 going to like 10 different resale stores, and each place we at least spent over $100.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's so much fun. And you just keep telling yourself, oh, but I'm going to make so much money off of this. But the truth is, you don't make the money off of it until you actually list it. Like, that's the part that people are like, this is too much work. Like, sitting here and photographing all of this, listing it, like, this takes up so much of my time. But that's the only way to make money off of the stuff that you've brought home. So, yeah, it's like if you can spend all that money at the beginning, but then also get it listed, amazing. Keep spending $1,000. But a lot of people don't get to that point where they can actually get all that stuff listed.
Okay. So, what would be your best hashtag thrift vacation with great thrifting spots?
Ooh, so I just got back from Seattle, and Seattle was pretty great. There are a lot of Goodwill outlets there. I think there's anywhere between like 4 to 5 within like an hour or 2 hour radius. So you could hit up all of them. Plus, there's just like a ton of, Goodwills and different thrift stores. And there's a ton of like garage sales and things happening. And it's just a very like kind of, it's a more well off community, I would say, Seattle, because you've got all those like tech, businesses, you've got Facebook, you've got all those different companies over there. So there's a lot of people with money. And so a lot of what you're finding at those thrift stores and Goodwills are a lot better than maybe what I would find here. So Seattle was pretty great. But I would just imagine anywhere that, the average income is higher than most places throughout the country. Plus, there's like Goodwill outlets. So it's like the best combination of like people with money, but you're able to source for extremely cheap prices. But yeah, Seattle was pretty great. Not gonna lie.
Okay, so I know you sell a lot of clothes on Poshmark and whatnot, but is there something else in the future that you want to learn to be able to sell besides clothing?
That's a good question. have dabbled with other things. So I saw a lot of clothes, I saw a lot of shoes as well, and that's kind of where it stops. Like I'll do bags here and there if I find them. I don't know very much about them. I have dabbled with hard goods. I personally just don't like it. Like, and I think a lot of it comes from me just not knowing very much about it. So I'll bring something home thinking I scored a home run, only to find like, oh, it's broken, or it's actually not worth that much, or and I feel like I've just gotten burned by hard goods too often to enjoy it. Plus, storing hard goods is a lot harder than storing clothes because for the most part, hard goods is a lot bulkier and whatnot. Um, Really, I think what I want to get into is it's not reselling related per se, but I want to get into more like real estate. Like I don't think I have the time or the energy to do like flipping houses, which kind of would be similar to reselling and to some degree. But whether it's like Airbnb or just like purchasing houses or apartments or condos to rent out, I feel like that's kind of the next step I want to take versus exploring other aspects of reselling, just because I've tried and I have not really enjoyed, reselling other things. And so as far as reselling goes, I'll probably stick to what I know.
So, what computer softwares or like training things do you think beginner resellers should start using?
So when it comes to reselling, I mean, I think one of the great things about it is that really anyone can do it as long as they have a phone and internet. And I think that's why it's such a great side hustle to have because you don't have to invest in all this crazy stuff. Obviously, like the higher quality camera you have, like the higher quality phone you have, the better, just because then you can take better pictures. But aside from that, if you there are a lot of great free softwares out there or apps that you can use to like yeah, take away the background and get like a nice white background. So you can use Photo Room, the free version. I I'm trying to think of what else. And then aside from that, I think whatever you can find to help you with the bookkeeping side of things, just to make sure that you're keeping track of your numbers. And a lot of people, I don't think GoDaddy does it anymore, but there's QuickBooks, there's a lot of different things, and there's a lot of resellers who have made tools like that for other resellers. I personally, and I talk about this a lot on my YouTube channel and on Instagram, but I use something called List Perfectly, and that's how I keep track of my numbers and my inventory. And I also use that to cross list. So as far as just getting started though, you really just need your phone, a good phone. And then there's always ways that you can spend money from there, but that's really all you need to get started, which is great.
Yeah. So when you go to a thrift store, if you ever see these 5 brands, what are those 5 brands that you always look out for? And when you see them, you definitely get them.
So in my area, I don't find the best stuff. So in my thrift stores locally, if I can find things like Ralph Lauren, if I can find like American Eagle denim, silver denim, what else do I find? Like I find a lot of Keens in my area, and I'm trying to think of other common things that come up. Any like cowboy boots or something like that. I feel like there's a lot of cowboy boots in my area. Those are not like exciting things. That's just what I find a lot. And so I'll always pick them up. But I mean, brands that are kind of like bread and butter to other people, brands like great denim brands, Levi's or Ammo or like A Goldie, like those are things that if I found them, I would pick them up in a heartbeat. I almost don't even care how much they're priced for. Yeah, there are a lot of great brands that I unfortunately just don't have the pleasure of seeing often in my thrift stores, but those are the ones that I see them a lot and I tend to pick them up.
What is your least favorite thing about reselling?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would say that if you're not careful, it can get overwhelming. Like I said earlier, it can get overwhelming in the sense of, you can have a lot of back stock, you can have a really big death pile. And for a lot of people, it does a number on kind of, I don't want to say mental health, but it does a number on their day-to-day, just like happiness. If you walk into your house and the first thing you see is a pile of clothes that you're like, oh my gosh, like I have to deal with that. It's stressful, and some people have figured it out where they have like a storage unit that they've rented out or something so they can get the mess out of their house, and their house really is just their house, and their reselling business takes place in another building or something like that. But I think that's the part that can be a little overwhelming, is a lot of times you're living with it and it's always there and it's hard to turn off. So not only is it physically always there, but then also because our reselling businesses are done on our phones and on our computers. Again, you're getting offers all day long, or you're getting questions all day long. There's not really like I clocked in and I clocked out and now I'm done. It's kind of an all day thing. And there's a constant reminder and presence regarding reselling. So that can get overwhelming and it can get a little suffocating. But again, if you can kind of create systems for yourself, if that's what you need to say, at this time, I'm done. Like I don't respond to anything reseller related. Then people can be a little bit more responsible with their time in that way. Personally, I'm okay with like getting the messages and the notifications all day long, but there are people out there who it's a little much, you know. So
Yeah, well, we have like a big pile in our game room and we call it the death pile. And
yeah.
we usually spend around 3 hours posting everything. Then after that, we only like do like offers and all that. And we just like
Mhm.
relax for the rest of the night.
Mhm.
And then we usually do that.
That's awesome. And let me ask you, like, is it fun for you to do that with your family? Is it fun to have like that kind of hobby where you can make money off of it too?
Yeah, it's fun because like every single time, like when you're going to the post office, it's so fun because like every single time you scan it, you just think of like that package and it's just like you're making stuff and you're sending it
Yeah.
home and all that.
Yeah. That's awesome. So that's really cool that that's something that you guys do together as a family, you know, and even to see like this was the pile, but here we are 3 hours later and it's gone, like to accomplish something like that together as family. That's awesome. Good for you guys.
So what is one brand that you like when you pick up, you should not like when you see the brand, you're like, no, just no.
There's a lot of brands. There's a lot of brands like that, I feel like. And that's the hard thing, is there really is a buyer for everything. So, you know, sometimes I'll say a brand and I'm scared I'm gonna like insult someone because they're like, that's my favorite brand to wear or something, you know. But for the most part, anything that is like a Walmart brand, for example, like will someone maybe eventually buy it? Yeah, probably, but is it worth your time to, you know, photograph it and list it and ship it out? Probably not, you know. So yeah, I'd say like Walmart brands, a lot of Kohl's brands just aren't worth it. Yeah, my husband always likes to joke because he'll go thrifting with me sometimes. And I don't know why we always joke about the brand Gloria Vanderbilt. Like whenever we're like, oh, there was only Gloria Vanderbilt. But like, I'm sure she's a wonderful person and makes, you know, fine clothing, but it's just one of those brands that we never pick up because for us, we don't see the value in it. But yeah, I would say there's a lot that I personally don't pick up, but maybe other people would. But for the most part, anything Walmart and Gloria Vanderbilt, we leave it behind. So,
What is one thing that you at the beginning regret buying, but then it actually sold for a lot of money?
ooh. So, maybe last year or 2 years ago, we did a garage sale, and I think because we were doing a garage sale, our neighbors, they just put out a lot of stuff on their curb and they put up a sign that said free because I think they were just like, okay, there's going to be a lot of people on our street because of this garage sale next door. So we'll just try to get rid of stuff too, but we don't want to have a garage sale. We're just going to give stuff away. So of course I went over to see what they were giving away for free to see if there was anything that I could resell. And they had these weird controllers for a game console that I've never heard of. But they were controllers. They appeared to be in working condition. So I picked them up and brought them home because I was like, they're free. But I was super annoyed because upon looking at them, I was like, what are these even? It's not like they were Xbox controllers or something. They were just really weird and they were really clunky. I feel like not only were they for just like a random game console, but also for like a random game. Like they had a joystick and I don't know. It was just really weird. And I immediately regretted it because I was like, this is dumb. It's going to take up a lot of my time and I have to store these somewhere. They're going to take up a lot of space. But they sold for like 30, $40. And I was like, okay. I mean, I had nothing into them. I learned something new. I still don't even remember what they were called what game console they were for. So did I really learn? I don't know. But yeah, I regretted it, but then I sold it and I was like, okay, I guess that was worth my time.
So when you went on to Whatnot, were you expecting like high prices, low prices? Were you thinking that you were going to make a lot of money, or like it was just like to get rid of a lot of clothes?
So yeah, I mean, Whatnot is such an interesting platform because there are a lot of people on there doing a lot of different things. A lot of people have different strategies. Um, I have been most motivated seeing people sell pretty great pieces and get some pretty great prices. But also, I know that that comes from them being able to source those items for cheap and by kind of cultivating a brand that, their brand is this is what we're going to bring. It's going to be fire and you're going to pay a premium for it. But I also know myself well enough to know like that's not my brand. That's not what I've cultivated for myself. And so I think I went in hoping to move a lot of product at once, knowing that I wasn't going to get the amount for those items that I would get if I were to post them online myself. But that's the trade-off, right? Like you're making a lot of money in one sitting and you're moving a lot of pieces. You're just not going to make as much as you could have had you sold those pieces individually online. And I have to constantly look at a piece and ask myself, is it worth it? Is it worth it to just move this for a lot less than Whatnot, but I'm done. I didn't have to cross list it. I didn't have to, X, Y, and Z. Or is this something that I really should just list myself? And also knowing my audience and Whatnot, even though this is something that maybe I'll only make $18, $20 were I to list it online, no one's going to want it on Whatnot. So like, I may as well just list it. So it's kind of been like a process of figuring out all those things. But I think I went in knowing like, I'm not going to make as much on each item, but I'm going to move a lot of pieces at once. And I'm okay with that.
So we are just starting Whatnot. So what would you give any tips to start off like anything?
Yeah. I think that the hardest thing for people who are newer to Whatnot and who don't have a big social media following, people are like, I can't get people in my shows. Like, no one is coming to my shows to buy my stuff. And they get really discouraged. And so, the biggest advice that I have for people is before you even schedule your first show, is to just go to as many shows as possible, be very active in the chats. You don't even necessarily have to buy stuff, but just let people get to know you, be extremely supportive of other resellers so that when the time comes for you to have your first show, people want to reciprocate and they want to support you in that same way. They want to show up for you. And hopefully some of those people want to buy from you as well. So I think the best example of that, I don't know if you know who With Pets is on Whatnot. She's Posh with Pets on Instagram. She would go to so many shows. She also spent a lot of money on Whatnot, but when it came time for her to do her first show, I have never seen such a supportive first show or so many people in one room and people just spending obscene amounts of money because she had been so supportive of people within the Whatnot community first that when it was time for her to do her first show, people definitely, supported her in the same way. So if you can spend a lot of time on the app, just get to know people, I think that that's really great. And then just aside from that, just start your starting bids at a price where if it's sold for that amount, you're not going to be upset. If something you purchased it for $50, don't start that thing at $3 because it might sell for $3 and you're going to be really upset with yourself, so.
Do you have any tips on growing on social media?
Yeah, I think one, figure out if you like social media, figure out if you like Instagram and YouTube and those things. And if you don't, it's okay not to do it. I think a lot of people feel like they have to, and they get really like burnt out and they get really upset at themselves for not doing more. But if you don't like it, it's going to be really hard to grow a social media following. But if you realize like, oh, this is so much fun, I really like it, I like communicating with people, I would say post what feels real and natural to you, post things that you're actually excited about, and just try to make as many connections and build community as much as possible. And if you're able to make authentic connections with people, I think that's when you're able to grow, and not only grow, but like have meaningful relationships with people, so that when it comes time to launch something, you're having your first whatnot show, or you're launching a YouTube channel, or you're trying to grow your YouTube channel, whatever it might be, you've built these like meaningful, rich relationships, and people want to show up for you in that way, versus you have a lot of followers, but none of them really care about you or care about what you're doing or want you to be successful. Really take time to go deep with as many people as you can within your following.
Okay, I think I'm going to wrap up the interview. Thank you so much for coming. Make sure you guys go follow her account and check it out. She has amazing tips. And thank you guys for watching. Make sure you subscribe, like this video, and turn on the post notifications. Bye!